on its way. Well, good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending where you are in the world, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. This is Marty Green, your top of mind guy, and I want to welcome you to today's broadcast. My purpose is to leverage what I learn, and because I want to leverage my endless curiosity to share what I learn and discover in order to inspire and support others for the greater good to become a better version of themselves. And so top of mind is about learning what you need to know, what needs to be at the top of your mind so that others will keep you at the top of theirs. What's at the top of mind today is how do you attract more people to engage with you so that you can share what it is that you do and what support you can give people and how you can serve them. And one of those strategies is to write a book. But of course, the main fear about writing a book is what if nobody reads it? And so I want to welcome today my guest, Cheri Metz, who is an author of more than 40 books. And also she teaches people how to write a book that people will read. As a matter of fact, she has a book specifically about that called Write to Attract Your Audience, an awesome book. And so welcome, Cheri.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate your having me on. I think that was a slight exaggeration. It's somewhere between 30 and 35. I've lost count.
Okay.
It's more than 40.
That's pretty good. Well, it's more than one. That's
right.
Yeah. I'm guessing the hardest one to write is the first one. Would that be accurate?
I can't say that. I let writer's block stop me from writing for a full half century. 5 decades I didn't write. So the first year that I wrote, I put out over 850,000 words. But I was writing as a ghostwriter, so it wasn't that difficult. Somebody else gave me the idea and turned me loose, and it was easy. But that's not everybody. That was fiction. So
okay.
When you're writing to attract an audience for your business, and you don't consider yourself a writer, and you may even be reluctant to be a writer, but you need a book, that's a whole different story.
Yes. So, but for someone who really does feel like they've got a book in them and they do like to write, how do you get started? I mean, what's the first thing that you do to put a pen to paper and say, okay, do you structure it first, or do you just start writing? What's your strategy?
The first thing I do is ask myself why I want to write it. And the next question is, what do I want my readers to get out of it? So that comes down to the split between fiction, which all authors want readers to get some entertainment and enjoyment out of their book, all fiction writers anyway. And then on the nonfiction side, do I want to attract clients? Do I want to teach people how to do something? So before I start structuring the book, I have a lot of work to do, and that is actually the full content of the book you mentioned, Right to Attract Your Audience.
Okay, so we won't do spoiler alerts.
We can do spoiler alerts. I always say, tell all your secrets.
Well, can you give us one key? I mean, well, you already did. You said, what are some of the main questions you should ask yourself besides, okay, what am I writing about, and what do people want to read? What are the main things?
What do people want to read is a big one.
Yeah.
But before you can ask that, you've got to figure out who the people are. Who is my reader? Who do I want to be my reader? And how do I attract that reader rather than someone who is not interested in what I have to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm guessing again that the first question people ask is, okay, why would anybody want to read what I write? So how do you get past that?
A lot of people put it in a different way. They say, why would anyone bother to read what I write?
Mhm.
I'm not good enough. Somebody else has already written it. Um, you know, I'll be found out as a fraud. It's commonly known as imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
And there's a very simple answer to it, although that doesn't necessarily dispel the feeling. You might need coaching to get the feeling out of the way. But the very common answer is, or rather, the very simple answer is, only you are you. Only you have your perspective, your experience, your expertise with the topic. And those people who are drawn to you, who are meant to be drawn to you, will find your book. Now you can help them. It's a science to get your book visible. It's not luck, it's not art, it's a science. So you can help them by following the steps that will make your book visible. But the people who are meant to read it will find it.
Interesting. Okay.
That's part of the law of attraction.
There you go. Okay. I've recently I've read a lot of books that I've found very inspiring, to your point, because they tell a story about a person's struggle and how they overcame it and the
Mm-hmm.
lessons that they learned along the way. And one of those books was just that. It was really the story of their life and how they overcame their struggles. The other one actually incorporates a journal type of methodology where they write the story and say, here's what I learned. What can you learn from that? And
Mm-hmm.
how does this apply to you? So two entirely different methods. One, just the story, and the other one, here's what I learned. How why don't you write something about yourself and let's see how you can grow from it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really important, an important distinction, because it's one thing to read a book, to have a momentary feeling of inspiration. It's quite another to implement what you've learned in the book. And 90% of the people or more who read it won't make it that transformation. Those who will are going to be your ideal market. The other piece of that is, and this is why I say tell all your secrets, very few people can make that transition on their own. Most people need support. So I mostly serve coaches and course creators, holistic practitioners, people who are truly trying to help people with a transformation rather than just knowledge. Knowledge is everywhere. You can get all the knowledge you need off the internet. You don't need to read a book. But if you want support, then read the books that interest you and then go work with the people who wrote them, because that's the way you're going to make the transformation.
Yeah, that's really powerful. As a matter of fact, the third book I read was just recently is that kind of book where the person who wrote it actually created a whole blueprint around a whole methodology around what she learned from the experience
Mm-hmm.
and now trains in that methodology. So she took
Yeah.
it even a step further. But I love what you said. Don't just tell a story. Tell someone how it can transform them.
Yeah. And, that's exactly how my book was written, only backwards. I went through the struggle, learned some things, decided that, in fact, I saw so many people having the struggle, and my heart went out to them. So I created a course. Then I made the book from the course instead of the other way around. It
Wow.
works either way.
Okay, so you wrote the course first. So you that's another strategy,
Mm-hmm.
because that one served your clients. They needed the course more, and then the book came out of it, which is evergreen, right?
Actually, both are evergreen now, but yes, the book is evergreen. I mean, my expertise is in self-publishing, and that picture changes as, especially as technology advances. So I'm sure there'll have to be updates to it. new editions eventually. But the main linear process that I lay out is probably going to be valid for the rest of, for as long as people read. Although video's taking over, I don't know how much longer people are going to be reading.
Oh, well, that's interesting. You should say that, because some people are very visual, some people are very kinesthetic, and others are very audible. So Audible, I find Audible very powerful because I love to hear the author's voice telling their story or making their points. There's like Mel Robbins is one of my favorites because she does it in a very raw way. You can just feel what the passion behind what she says. Right. And her stories she uses bad language in some cases, which some people will be offended by, but if you're not, then the author. But
that's a strategy.
I really read her books. Did I freeze?
Your video is frozen.
Did I freeze?
Still hear you. Yes.
Oh, you hear me? Okay, as long as you can hear me, that's fine.
I can hear you.
That's another strategy. Can you hear me now still?
Uh-huh.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. My internet connection gets wonky sometimes, which is interesting because I'm sitting right next to my router. But the other thing I've read, a lot of people use a parable style to tell their story. Do you like that? So have you ever written in the parable style? Let me think.
Not precisely, but everyone writes differently, and it's fine. Again, people who like to read who like to read stories in parable style will be drawn to it. What's important about that whole issue is that we have evolved to be drawn to certain story arcs since time immemorial, since before there was writing, since people told their stories in cave paintings or scratchings on the cave walls. So the story is something we all relate to, deeply, deeply psychological. And it's, there are various structures, including the parable. Not everyone handles that structure as well as other people. I don't think I would, for example. But and you talked about hearing the author's voice. You know that not all audiobooks are narrated by the author, right?
No. But it's interesting. One of my favorite authors is John Maxwell, and he has done the voice on many of his books. And the ones that I read of his that I most enjoy are the ones where it's his own voice, as opposed to somebody else's.
With a nonfiction book, that probably would work the best. And while you were frozen, you were alluding to someone who uses bad language. One of the things I first learned about marketing is draw your line in the sand. Not only do you want to call in the people who are your ideal audience, you want to turn away the people who are not. And the way you use language, including language that is not potentially bland, is one of those ways. So yeah, and you can look at any fiction book, and if it has 4-letter words in it, there will be some people who review it and say how bad that is, and there will be some people who love how sassy the author is. So that just goes to show you right away that everyone has the people who are drawn to them. And
definitely,
that's what it's all about.
So it's great. So let's talk about Cheri a little bit. So first of all, I know you wrote another recent book, right?
I organized a more recent book. Part of the way I serve coaches, course creators, holistic practitioners and other small entrepreneurs is by letting them get their toe in the water with an anthology, or sometimes called a compilation book. So the book I published recently, and I'm not sure my camera's going to cooperate, but I'll try to show it.
Yeah. See
This
fine.
book, these people whose pictures are at the bottom are the actual authors of the book. What I did was bring them together and provide the services around editing their content and producing the book. So I published the book, but I didn't author the book.
Got it. Okay. Well,
Although it
that's
says
good.
author, because that's I can't make Amazon take that off. They says I'm the author.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was part of an anthology book myself. I wrote, but it
Oh.
was just literally 2 paragraphs.
Oh, really?
that was my start. But it was fun, and it's
Yeah.
fun to see yourself in print.
Right. So when I do this, I do it a little bit differently, because I want my authors to come away with the idea that it's not only possible, but relatively easy to self-publish your book. I'm all about self-publishing. That's my line in the sand.
You like to self-publish. So what's the biggest difference between self-publishing and having a publisher do it?
Traditional publishing, the biggest difference I see is that you completely lose control of your book once you have signed the contract with a traditional publisher. You no longer have a say. Some publishers give you some, but they're always the final word. You no longer have a say in how you present your material, for example. You've got editors, which everyone needs, even self-published authors. But with traditional publishers, most likely, if they don't like a chapter of your book, they'll make you take it out or they'll make you change it, whereas the self-publisher is not subject to that. And it goes right down to the cover design, the typeface, the interior of the book. It's both the pro and the con. If you want only to write and have your book distributed by a publisher, then you might want a traditional publisher. If you want control over your book and to make a little more money, you want to self-publish. And I know that that's counterintuitive, but at best, with a traditional publisher, especially if you have an agent, you're going to make about the same amount per book as you do with a self-published book distributed on Amazon or other online distributors.
Wow. Okay. So you help authors self-publish.
I do. Well, I teach them what they need to know. I do have services that will help them, but it's against Amazon's terms of service for me to go into their account and publish their books. So the best I can do for that is to get on Zoom and walk them through it step by step.
Got
So
it.
I have a workshop that teaches it. But
Okay.
it's really easy. People who think they aren't tech savvy, feel like it's this big hairy monster, and it isn't. I guarantee it.
Yeah, hairy monster. That's a good way to put it. Okay. Well, one of the things you've done is you've created an app around helping people do this and learning about being a publisher. And I'm actually showing it on the bottom there. And
Yes.
this is how to go if you're watching live or in the recording, metaprosperity.app, and it's a very cool app.
Have you downloaded it and looked
Oh
at
yes,
it?
I've walked through it several
Thank
times.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just beginning to wrap my head around how to add content to it in the way that's best for subscribers to get what they need. And it's not only about writing.
No.
It's about mindset. It's about health, all aspects of health. So I've still got a lot of content to add. I'm adding content every week. And I'm becoming very proud of it. At first, it just looked like a jumble, and I was going, "Oh, what have I done?"
Okay. Well, no, you should be very proud of it because the way it's broken down into sections, it's very easy to navigate and
Oh,
very
good.
easy to find the content, and that's not always true. So it's a real app. It's not just you open a page and there's just a cover page there. There's a lot of insight there and a lot of quality.
It's definitely not just a page. It's
No. It's, you know how some people have a web page and it's one page. This is not that.
no.
This is
I mean, this particular URL will actually takes you to a one-page website that talks about the app and gives you the opportunity to download it.
Yeah.
You have to download it to see all that content.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so also I'm posting down below there how you can reach Cheri, and that's coach.cherimetprosperity.org. So if you want to reach her to learn more about it, of course you can download her book on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one more thing in here, and that is Cheri has a Facebook group called the Right Expert One.
No, there's no one on it.
Oh, just the Right Expert?
The Right Expert. Maybe I got the pipe that Facebook puts in the search bar. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I'll edit it and I'll put it in there in the bottom. So
okay.
So how would you prefer that people reach you, Cheri?
That's a good question. I really have no preference. If you want a discussion with me one-on-one to see what a book might do for you, or if you have written a book or started writing a book or want to write a book and would like an assessment of where you are in the process, email me. I've got a link for a discovery call. It's called Get Your Book Done.
There you go.
Strategy call. I have various services from right down from the free content on my app to inexpensive workshops, all the way up to ghostwriting, which is not inexpensive, but I would prefer that you write your own book. But if you just don't have the time, I can help.
Awesome. Well, Cheri, thanks so much for joining me today. And folks, if writing a book wasn't at the top of your mind before, I hope it is now. Everybody in this group is interested. It's called Business Bookworms and Leaders. So obviously you love reading. And if you love reading, there's a good chance that you might like writing as well. So thank you for joining us today. And we will see you next Wednesday for another authors. And please feel free to comment on the interview. If you want to know more, if you want Cheri to contact you, you can also put that in the comments and I'll make that connection for you. And have an awesome day and happy reading.
Thanks for having me on, Marty.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Let me just end broadcast.